Alex, how are you?
Very well. How are you?
Beautiful. We're ready to roll, so we can start chatting straight away. So talk.
Now that I'm hearing my own voice, I think I need to lower an octave.
Yeah.
Sure.
So how's SouthStart been so far for you?
So far, so good. I mean, I think we're in hour one.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Were you at the dinner last night, or?
Yeah, the dinner was really good. One of the things you come to Adelaide for is the food, so you got to go to the dinner.
Do you spend much time down here, or?
Yeah, I usually come down here probably 5 or 6 times a year.
Nice.
Actually, we did a big sort of focus piece in our big report this year on South Australia. So
Beautiful.
We spend quite a lot of time down here talking to founders and government and investors about the ecosystem here. So I've got to enjoy the sights and sounds of Adelaide quite a lot.
We're really excited about this event, and I suppose starting to champion the ecosystem and just the community around it. And I think a big part of this of SouthStart in 2018 is sort of starting to open those connections and having these conversations. We often find in SA that there's so much great stuff happening, but it just sits below the surface a bit. So actually bringing people up and giving people the confidence to get out there and have these chats.
Yeah, and I've been to SouthStart a couple of times before,
Right.
And it's, I think, a really important part of the ecosystem here, just to catalyze some of those conversations, as you say. And this year's a whole other level. It's fantastic. The production value is awesome. Anyone who's interested in this stuff who's not here is missing out.
100%. And I think we want to bring more people into these conversations. And I mean, I know you've spent time overseas, so you're in Tel Aviv for a number of years. I think it's interesting, and they've got an amazing startup ecosystem in Israel. I spent some time in London, and I think in some of those communities there really is a lot of conversation between founders, between businesses that are in the ecosystem, and I found in SA that's been lacking a bit, but it's starting to kind of bubble up to the surface more.
Yeah, it's actually there's some really exciting stuff happening here. Some cool companies. Suddenly, the government's interested in supporting this stuff over the last couple of years, and the growth is very clear. So I think these things have a way of snowballing, and as you start to get more of the sort of fleets and Mariotas and big companies raising big money, we'll start to see a real spike in growth.
What is exciting you about the South Australian ecosystem at the moment?
I mean, just the number of awesome companies and founders, the energy around, I think, is great. One of the things that I just talked about in my presentation here was this idea that actually South Australia isn't trying to be everything to everyone.
Sure.
It's focusing its efforts on areas of clear strength. And that actually strategically, I think, is a fantastic idea for, a part of the world that people wouldn't naturally associate with technology and startups today, but which in a couple of years' time, they might very, very clearly associate with, space tech or defense tech startups. If you're a graduate in Germany in 2020, thinking of, interested in space tech and you're doing software, there's every chance you'll think about Adelaide as a top place to go to join one of the world's best space tech companies, and that's a super exciting prospect.
It is exciting, and some of the conversations we were having last night was around, these things don't happen overnight, right? You need to sort of start planting the roots, and it may seem, and it obviously happens with startups a lot, it seems like things happen overnight, but they really don't, and you need to have that time to sort of let things bubble to the surface, right?
Yeah, people are always talking about overnight successes.
It doesn't exist.
Like the Atlassian guys were overnight billionaires. They founded the company in 2002 and they IPO'd in 2016. It's a steep trajectory, but there's no way it's overnight.
We're actually looking at some of their funding rounds yesterday. I think the first round, Series A, was in 2011, and and they'd already been running for 10 years before that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they're bootstrapped. They were eating ramen and coding in the kitchen, and that's how you do it. That's what startups are about. But all of that stuff, the pre-glitz and glamour stuff just gets forgotten when the story gets told, I think.
100%.
Which is kind of a shame, actually. But
it is, because, that's what you need to go through, and I think that's part of the conversation that I think needs to happen. People need to understand that it isn't an overnight success. You actually need to, put in the hard yards, and that's the bulk of the work, really. And that just continues once, success happens anyway.
Totally. And look, it's actually true of countries and ecosystems as much as it's true of companies.
Sure.
I lived, as you said, in Israel for 3 years, and people sort of think, oh, this Israeli miracle, they're the startup nation. All of a sudden, they've got this amazing tech sector.
Yeah.
But it's not like that at all. They started this in the mid-90s, and there was a real concerted push around the country for building a sectoral strength in technology, high tech, as they call it in Israel.
High tech.
ICQ came out of Israel in the 90s.
Mid-90s, yeah.
And and it's taken 25 years of bipartisan, concerted effort, universities, schools, governments, companies, everybody kind of getting behind this thing to actually make it happen. So that's what we need to do here too.
In South Australia, as a South Australian, what do you think we can do on a grassroots level to sort of look forward 5-10 years and actually start championing this and helping things grow, so that people in Germany coming out of uni are actually looking towards Adelaide as a place to study?
Yeah, well, one of the things you got to do is catalyze the strengths in a visible kind of way, and one of the best ways to do that is to put a flag in the ground. Often that's a physical space, and that's exactly what's happening here. The Lot 14 project that's happening out at the old Royal Adelaide Hospital site. This is a 23,000 square metre innovation precinct. In context, the Sydney Startup Hub, which is the biggest startup hub in the Southern Hemisphere, is 17,000 square metres.
Wow.
Station F, which is the biggest startup hub in the world in Paris, is 36,000 square metres. So Lot 14 is like right there. It's not all startups, but actually that's a good thing, I think. There's big multinational corporates doing R&D in Lot 14. There's going to be scale-ups in there like Mariota working right next door to startups who are trying to make something happen.
And then there's some cool small companies in there. I've got a mate that runs a AR and virtual reality business, and he's down there, and even now, in the early stages, walking around, it's great to be able to have those conversations, right? I think if you can get these different people in the same room and chatting, who knows what's going to come out of that? Yeah,
exactly. That density thing, there's a lot of research around that density thing working for companies in there. Actually just generating collisions which generate understanding about what you need to do to grow a global business, shared experience, all that kind of stuff. But from an international perspective, looking into Australia and into South Australia, you need a shining light. You need someone to be able to say, okay, if I go there, that's where I go. I go to that part of the city.
That beacon.
And that's where everyone is. That's great for talent looking to come to South Australia, but it's also great for capital. If you've got investors looking to invest in space tech companies around the world, if you've got a beacon here of world-leading companies all in one spot, that's an easy win for them to turn up and start talking to companies.
Oh, well, we need to put the flag in the ground.
That's exactly right, which I think is happening. So that's really exciting.
Awesome. You're looking forward to the next couple of days? You're hanging around? Or?
Yeah. It should be, I think, a fantastic program. Lots of great speakers. Really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for the chat.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Cheers.